call the meeting to order at 9:04. Any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No additions or deletions.
Okay, and no public. Review and approve the minutes of December 11th of last year. Do you have any comments,
Nope.
changes?
No comments or changes. That's how I remember them as well. So I make a motion that we approve the minutes from December 11th.
I
Was it
will.
December? Yeah.
Yeah, 2020. And I will second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that passes. Yeah, I felt kind of bad. I started those minutes right after our meeting. I didn't finish them till a couple nights ago. Took me a little while, but nobody commented about it, so I'm not going to worry too much. Correspondence. Do you have anything besides what you've got from Tammy?
Nope, no other items.
Okay, so we don't have any correspondence. So we'll jump right into existing policies. C5 firearms. So there were really the VSBA updated it November of last year. They took out, or they updated a reference to the school board, the state board manual and rules policy. I took out the reference to what would be C21, the search and seizure policy, since we have not adopted that.
Okay.
But other than that, it should be word for word. It's right from VSBA, so I don't. Oh, Matt's here. Good. Because I need to pay attention to that waiting room a little bit better. So I don't see any problems with it. We'll see if Matt. Why doesn't that want to work?
Maybe it doesn't like -5 either.
He disappeared.
Oh.
Apparently he didn't want to come in. We'll give him a minute to come back. I'll send him a quick message, just make sure that I didn't do something. Hit the admit button, you assume it's going to admit them.
That is the logical.
Here he is. There we go. Hey, Matt. I was afraid I booted you by accident there a minute ago.
Yeah, I think I was in and out a few times and I don't know what happened, but here we are now. Can you hear me okay?
You sound like you're underwater. Is Dover having another water problem?
No, I think I'm on an old laptop today.
Ah. Okay, so we are looking at C5 firearms. Policy that I think we talked about briefly, one of our first policy committee meetings. But the only changes that I made to it was an update from the VSBA in a reference to the State Board of Education. And then I took out search and seizure reference because we have not adopted that policy as of yet. But wanted to get any input that you have.
Which, what did you say you changed, Mark, from the VSBA?
It was a reference to the Vermont State Board of Education manual rules and practices. in the last legal reference. The very last legal reference, they updated what was section 4312 to section 4313. So they literally just changed one number.
Yeah.
And then right below that, the cross references, I took out search and seizure, and I just added the policy number for C20 for the student conduct and discipline.
So it looks like it's pretty straightforward. Not too much gray area, right? You get caught, you get expelled for the rest of the year, or at least one calendar year. But the school board may modify the expulsion.
Right. I don't remember. Probably, was it C20? C20, where is it? 20, which we adopted in November, I think, of last year. Was kind of a broader policy that included more than just firearms.
The conduct and discipline,
Yep.
because that had weapon and like all the other ones.
Right. That was the one that Rick didn't like the terminology of student conduct.
So that one
Yeah,
was a
I don't have
recommended.
anything-
Yeah. And
Go
does
ahead, Kate.
does it make sense to have both policies?
Well, firearms is a required policy,
Okay.
and it does not cover other weapons, which was the problem that we ran across.
This fall.
Yeah, I was trying to remember when it was.
And don't we feel confident it was the discipline policy that other weapons would be covered by that policy?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I recall.
Yep.
I'm fine with this reads.
You had relied on that policy from the Dover district since we hadn't enacted one yet for that situation.
Right.
All right, if you're comfortable with it, then Kate, should we just, I don't think we need to do anything other than recommend that it get marked as reviewed the date of our next meeting. I think those two changes are pretty inconsequential.
Okay. Do we need a motion to mark it as reviewed?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we mark policy C5 as reviewed on 2/12/2021.
Wouldn't be today, it would be, the board
Oh.
has to do it. We have to recommend that it be
Be
reviewed,
reviewed by the whole board. Okay.
right?
Amend that.
Then I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There you go. Okay, one down. Now we got a really long policy. C6, home study. I think there were a couple of small changes to this. Again, there was an update to the rule number from the Vermont State Board of Education, and they had removed the cross references, which had included had included a policy dissemination, administration, and review A3, which I'm guessing it was an old policy from the previous numbering scheme. Frozen, Matt?
I think so.
You must be using a computer from 1980.
Yeah, it's really, I'm sorry, it's definitely,
Okay.
I may have to switch.
Do you want to be easier for you just to call in?
Nah, it's okay. I can go to my other computer and reconnect. It's just, this one is an old Chromebook and it's just really probably on its last legs. Not very good for Zoom.
So Kate, did you have any?
Like the yes, I'm right back, guys. Sit tight.
Okay. Kate, did you have any comments on this policy?
No, it seemed pretty straightforward with just the updates, because it does seem like it was just the update
Yeah.
to the prior references.
I think there is some talk in the legislature about changing the rules around home study students, but they have so many. I think the last count I heard was that there are 70 education related bills that have been introduced so far this year.
Wow. Can you imagine how much time it takes to like go through each of those?
Most
And
of
how
them
much-
probably won't get a whole lot of attention, but
No. Well, and then they have to have somebody bring it to the floor and all of that fun stuff. So I'm sure. Yeah, that's a lot.
the education committees only have so much bandwidth, and they've got some really major topics that they're working with that are taking up most of their time.
16, 20,
And he's back.
Hey guys, is that better?
Oh my God, night and day.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm
Hey,
smiling.
you won't forget about us when you go to put in an order for those sweatshirts, right?
Yes, actually, we just opened up our new swag store with the school club, so I will send the link to the board.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. You can get hats and coats and sweatpants and all kinds of fun things.
We should have
Okay.
shared with the board. The Wardsboro School Club just did a cookie fundraiser. So this morning
Yeah.
when I dropped Amelia off, I got to pick up a bag of gluten-free cookies that Cindy's had baked for us. So I
Nice.
was super excited to.
Yeah,
so,
I always buy cookies, Kate, whenever they come through. So
yeah, next time we'll have to make sure we share that with everybody, because that was a
Yeah.
pretty sweet fundraiser.
yeah, nice. And there's a whole nother, like, we tried to do it. We started doing a little last year where we would share things between the school clubs.
Hmm.
So when one school club was doing something, it would go out to the other parents and vice versa, just to kind of broaden the pot a little bit. And that worked, I think, worked pretty well.
And there was that one event that the two were going to have together, like the jungle theme event or
Yes.
something. But I think it was
Dance
right
or
in
something. Yeah.
March or something crazy.
Thwarted.
COVID got in the way.
Yeah. So C6 is just a really boilerplate thing. The basic premise is we pretty much we would never say no to a home study student that wanted to participate in anything. That's cool. We bring them in, bring us everybody, bring us you're tired and weary. Get them in there socializing and, being with other kids their age. That's one of the hardest parts about homeschooling.
In a normal year, do you have homeschool kids that come in and participate?
It's fairly rare, but it's just because there aren't that many homeschool. So, but we do occasionally have some that will come in. They might come in and do music classes or PE or something that's it's harder for them to do as a homeschooler.
Good.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's something I mean, I used to have kids come into band when I was at Leland and Gray, and they would come in just for band, and they would do marching band and all the after school programs and chorus and those kinds of things. Art, you know, it was good.
Getting that socialization is so important.
Yeah, no, it's really important. And it adds some extra, you know, diversity to our group.
All right, so Kate, you want to make a motion? We'll just mark this, recommended to get marked as reviewed at our next board meeting.
Yes, I will move that we mark this as reviewed at the next River Valley's Unified School District meeting.
I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
There we go.
Okay.
One more down. C7, student attendance. This was updated by the VSBA also on October 11th of 2019. They removed the reference to the Vermont State Board of Education Manual and Policies. I'm sorry, Manual of Rules and Practices. And they removed the cross references, which had been to admission of resident students and admission of non-resident tuition students. And those were the only changes.
I had a question about this, guys.
Sure.
In the first paragraph, about maybe 2 sentences from the end, maybe it's the last sentence, it says students who are over the age of 16 are required to attend school continually for the full number of school days. Is that correct? Or should that be students who are under the age of 16?
Oh, it says under, wait, the VSBA one, I have a dual screen situation. VSBA says students who are over the age of 16 are required, because the sentence prior to that, it says legal pupils between the ages of 6 and 16 who are residents of the school district. So the sentence before covers that prior age group in this one. So I wonder why 16 is such a pivotal age in this.
Well, and I thought that 16, I thought you weren't required.
Right. Because the previous sentence says between the ages of 6 and 16 are required to attend school. And then the next sentence says students who are over 16 are required to attend school. I think it might be a typo on the VSBA one.
Yeah, and it's in our original C7 also. Why don't I have them check that and possibly check with Visbit. Nice catch there, Matt.
Yeah, it just seemed kind of odd to me that if you're under or over 16, you're required to attend school.
You know what? My brain immediately went to under, and that's what I read, even though it was said over. Yeah, no.
Worth an ask, I think, just to make sure that we're clear on it. We're not
Absolutely.
messing it up.
I will do that.
You see, they've reorganized the model policy website.
Yep.
Yeah, my link was broken this morning, so I had to go and find it again. I was like, "Ooh."
And they named the website "Copy of Model Policy Manual."
Oh, did they? I did not notice that. I've given them about half a dozen mistakes that they had already made. I'll give them that one also. They seem to have rushed it a little bit. I don't know if I'm the only one, but the loading of the homepage now for VSBA is so slow. I don't know if they've got a large graphic on there or what, but it just doesn't open quickly anymore.
But mine popped right open on this computer, but on that Chromebook, it took about a week.
Oh, man.
But it's just an old Chromebook, that's all. It's got a lot of miles on it.
Mine's about 3 years old at this point, but okay. D2, grade advancement. This was a policy that they have removed as of March of 2018. And the reason that I was given was that it was removed from the policy manual in March of 18 because of a state board rule 2120.2.2D. That was the basis for the policy, was no longer in effect. So how do you guys handle grade advancement or not?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not exactly sure how Tammy does it, but we essentially, we would follow this as an administrative procedure. So grade advancement would be what we would do for a child that we thought maybe was not properly placed in their current grade and needed to move up to another grade. So we would use data to look at the student's performance, look at the strengths and weaknesses. We would consider the social impact. We would consider the social groups of the class they're in versus the other class option. Have conversations with the parent and ultimately make a decision with that, all of that in mind. The same is true for retention. Promotion is really the act of moving from one grade to the next as usual at the end of the year. So that just essentially happens. There's a trend away from retention, pretty strong trend away from that, just because of the fact that so many classrooms are, well, in Wardsboro you have multi-grade anyway, but in a single grade classroom, you usually have about 3 grades worth of skill level in any given grade. You have, roughly the grade that the class is supposed to be. And then there's usually a handful of kids who are a grade up and a handful of kids who are maybe a grade below. And you differentiate the activities and the assignments to meet those kids' needs. So that's really very common in a school that has 1 class per grade. Now, of course, in a school that had 2 or 3 classrooms per grade, then you have more ability to focus your work on particular groupings. But then, of course, there's research that says that's not good either. It's better to have things heterogeneous instead of homogeneous groupings in terms of skill levels. So anyway, that's a problem we don't have to deal with here because we only have one classroom per grade or 1 classroom per 2 grades in Wardsboro's case. So it's pretty rare.
Do you have a written procedure on this, or is this kind of just best practices at this point?
I think it's really just best practices, and we were guided by this D2. As you can see, there's a, let's see, if I remember this correctly, let me reread it. Goal of student progress in his or her program by reaching a standard of achievement necessary to progress from grade to grade. That's also not necessary anymore. Acceleration, every now and again, we'll get a parent that says, my kid needs to be moved up a grade, because they're in the 99th percentile or the 90th percentile or something. And so we may reference this. So we do base things on whether or not the student is meeting standards. The other relevant factors are social, emotional, physical, and mental growth, past academic performance, behavior, motivation, and attendance. We also look at the chemistry of both, the current setting and whatever the future setting is, to just see what that looks like.
Do you see any?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask whether you see any potential problems with not having a written policy on this, and should we be looking to create our own modeled on this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, ultimately, the previous policy I have fallen back on a few times where I've either had a teacher wanting to retain, or I've had a parent wanting to accelerate, and neither decision I supported. And so the previous policy we had, I believe, said that the ultimate final decision was the principal's. And I have had to exercise that in the past. where I've just said, okay, I've taken all this information, I've talked to everybody. My decision is this, based on the fact that the policy enables me to make that decision, I'm making it. And I don't see that in the current form of this policy.
Would you have, I'm assuming you're referencing the old Dover policy.
Yeah,
Would you have that someplace? You could either scan it or if
Yeah.
it's PDF, send it to me.
yeah, let me see it. I might be able to find it right now.
Okay.
Dover policies, this is the old batch. D2 grade advancement, retention, promotion, and acceleration of students. Yeah, this is really different. Let me send this to you.
All
Can you
right.
guys open Google Docs, okay?
We can. Yeah. I also made you a co-host in case you want to display it, but I would definitely like to see a copy of it.
Yeah, I think maybe chat, is chat disabled because of it? This is a meeting.
Yeah, it is.
I'm just gonna email this to you then, okay? You want me to
Yeah.
display it? I can do that too.
You could display it and then email it to us after. My gut reaction is that it seems to me like this is a policy that should be in place in one form or another, but
Yeah, this was, as you can imagine, previous Dover policies were pretty exhaustive.
yeah.
And this is one of those. Do you want to take a minute and read it? Can you see it okay?
I'm good. It is rather long though, so it might be better just to email the link to us.
Yeah, I can do that, and then we can hold this till the next meeting. Give you some time to look it over.
Yeah, and Matt, maybe what I'll do, maybe the three of us and Tammy can have an offline email correspondence, just to, maybe putting something together, a rough draft or something together for us to look at the next meeting. So see what parts you guys feel are important.
All right, I will get that right over to you.
Great. Kate, any thoughts one way or another on this?
I think, I know that the directive of the board overall was kind of like less policies, more procedures. But if it does prove helpful for, Matt's expressed that it was helpful for him in the past, I think it would be beneficial to at least bring it up for review and consideration after we do a little bit more work on it. And I definitely like the idea of looking at what worked for Dover in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, hearing Matt or Tammy say that it's something they have or think they may need to fall back on it, that's pretty good motivation to have something in place.
Yeah, check it out and see what you think. Maybe compare it with the, there may be something in this old policy that violates some new statutes too that I haven't researched or compared. That would be a good academic practice too.
Yeah, I guess my thinking is we'll try to draft something between the four of us and then send it to Bill to have legal counsel review before we move on it.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. So that
The
takes.
last one?
What's that?
Is that the last one for today? No,
Nope. We got
some new ones.
We've got some discussion. Probably no voting. So a couple months ago, Rich brought a correspondence to the board that was written anonymously. I know nothing more about it than that, but it got me thinking that he basically asked us as a board what we wanted to do, and it felt to me like that might be something we may at least want to consider having a policy on, so that the public knows what to expect. and that every anonymous communication is handled the same way. So that said, I got in touch with the Secretary of State's office, and had a really good back and forth conversation with, I don't want to butcher her name, Jenny Prosser, who is General Counsel and Director of Municipal Assistance at the Vermont Secretary of State's office. I'll forward her email to you guys, but the gist of it was neither the open meeting laws nor any court cases have resolved this issue, and that it's an open question that most likely would end up getting decided by the courts if somebody was upset enough about not having their anonymous letter attended to. Of course, doing that would make it no longer anonymous. So I wanted to, before spending the time trying to compose a policy, because there isn't one, I wanted to get your guys' input on whether it's something you think that we should have.
Is there any danger to just saying we won't read anything that's anonymous because we have no ability to act on it?
You mean saying that out loud?
Yeah, is there any, yeah, just making it a board procedure that says if you want to address the board, you have to include who we respond to with our responses.
There's the only danger is that theoretically somebody could take us to court, but that could happen with a policy also.
Right.
But we could suggest to Rich that he include that on the agenda, the way he has, a couple other notes about public comment. You have 4 minutes and yada yada yada. So I'm happy to go however you guys think would be best. I have no interest in writing another policy. I'm having enough trouble with the other one I'm trying to write.
You know, if there are any other policies or situations like this in any other schools in the state?
I asked the VSBA and they didn't have any information on anything. They're the ones who referred me to the Secretary of State's office. So whether or not this comes up regularly, I have no idea. It felt really awkward to me. The brief conversation we had, Laura talking about whether or not the letter had anything to do with the discipline or a problem with staff or administration. So it was just a topic of conversation I wanted to have. Kate, any thoughts?
I think keeping it more as a procedure instead of trying to work up a policy, especially where the VSBA doesn't have a model for it, seems a little bit more simple. Just keeping it as a procedure that we just kind of follow, and doing what Rich did, mentioning that we have an anonymous letter, and that we typically don't, read them and comment on them.
Should we try to make that a standard procedure versus what Rich did, which was, kind of ask the board, well, do what you guys want?
I mean, it might behoove you to make it something that, is a way that you do business, because I mean, honestly, you don't even know if it's a voter that wrote the letter. It could be somebody who doesn't have any standing in one of your towns. And so there's some danger to responding to it when it's anonymous. You could maybe look at the content and see if it's a staff issue, if it's a principal issue or if it's a board issue, and determine that you could pass it on and say, I'm going to pass this on to the administration for potential action. And then, I would have to look at it and determine. So I've received anonymous things before. And if it's a staffing issue, I've even gone so far as to share that with staff and say, look, this came in anonymously. I don't even know who it's from. Take it with a grain of salt and learn what we can from it and move on, because we can't respond. We don't know who wrote it. But we know that it is a perspective, and we value perspective, even though we can't always define it. And sometimes we take or leave things based on, the information at hand. And you could leave it at that. If it's a board issue, you could discuss it in your open meeting or your executive session, whatever is appropriate based on the content. But there's really not much action you can take when there's nobody to respond to. And especially when you don't even know if it's a constituent in your voting group, right?
Now, I don't think we as a board have procedures.
I was going to say, if we have procedures, I would love to read through them, but
Yeah.
I'm not aware of any procedures.
A good question for Bill. He might have some wisdom on that.
I'm not going to guess what he'd say, but I think the only procedures I've seen are the sort of general recommended ones from the VSBA in their, whatever the name of their little manual is that gets sent out. Kate, did you ever get a copy of that manual? The VSBA. Give me a second.
I don't believe that I have.
I don't know where mine is. I will, I'll talk to Rich and make sure that you get one. I was given, when I took over Katie McDonald, I can never remember which way her name, when I took over her position, she gave me her manual. So I'll talk to Rich and make sure that we get you one.
Okay, that would be good.
Definitely. So yeah, I will ask Bill whether there are any sort of procedures, and Rich. I never really thought about that, but no, I don't. If we have procedures, I certainly don't know them. So I'm getting that general consensus is no policy, possibly some sort of procedure, or maybe just continue with common sense. Am I summarizing relatively?
Yes,
Okay.
that's a good summarization.
I'm going to leave this on the agenda for next meeting, and we'll have an answer about procedures at that point. And then we can kind of choose whether a procedure or the common sense route. Sound good? Okay. Quick update on C21. This was a policy that we had a couple of issues in wording. The seizing of a child or student, and lack of legal reference. So I took it to the VSBA. The VSBA took it to VSBIT, the Vermont School Board's Insurance Trust, basically their legal counsel, who put some work into updating the policy. I spoke to Sandra a couple days ago, and she's gotten it back from them, and they're kind of finalizing an updated policy. So as soon as we get that, we'll talk about it.
That sounds good.
That's good. Seems that's pretty short anyway, right?
No, I don't. I don't have it in front of me. I don't.
Paragraphs.
I think
About
there was
a
a
half a
couple
page.
Was that all it was? Okay.
Yeah, it was about a half a page, that policy.
But it definitely, I think, Matt, you asked whether there were any legal references for it, and the wording definitely was awkward at best.
Yeah, the thing about seizing students or something.
Right, exactly.
That was weird.
So we'll have a better policy to consider in the very near future. I was looking through the VSBA policy manuals and trying to kind of pick out policies that I thought we may want to consider. I would love, I'm thinking that maybe at our next meeting or the one after, we review fewer policies and just actually spend the time to go through the list of policies on that manual and say, you know, yes, this is something we want to look at, and no, or no, this is not something we want to look at. Because I don't want to just be picking things out that have some interest or I think maybe good. I want to have all of our opinions on that. So I picked out C28, transgender and gender nonconforming students, as a policy that is currently one that, well, the topic is currently one that's relatively hot in the country. I have no idea whether this is something that we want, don't want. I asked, since Tammy wasn't going to, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so I had a brief conversation this morning when I saw Tammy at the school. She mentioned she wasn't going to come to the meeting. And we talked about this policy quickly from a facility standpoint at Wardsboro. I don't know if you guys are aware of the layout of the building, but one of the things in this policy was being able to offer bathrooms and such to students based on this policy. And the Wardsboro building does not have many bathrooms. And we don't know what the building is currently zoned for, if they could add bathrooms or something of that nature. But the current setup is, I believe they have like 2 different student bathrooms that the whole school can use. There's one separate bathroom in the pre-K that has a shorter potty, and then there's one teacher bathroom. So, and they already have a challenge that they've worked through with a student with some physical challenges. So they've worked through that, but they definitely have some facility challenges in terms of like how this policy is written. And what one of the awesome things that the policy is working towards is, you know, providing facilities so that all students feel safe and secure, which is important. But they just don't have that many bathrooms to begin with.
I told Tammy that one of the comments she made was that she'd be interested to see how other schools in the state are handling that situation, because we don't have the only small schools in the state. So I told her that I would ask the VSBA if they could gather some data, maybe through a survey with the Principals Association or something, just to get an idea. But that clearly facilities would be an issue. Matt, I'd love to get your input. Worth it?
Yes.
Worth looking. I have no intentions of moving on this at this point. This is really a discussion of should we move on it.
Yeah, I think that the point about the bathrooms is not really much of an issue at Dover. We have a lot of single bathrooms. I think we have 11, 12, something like 13 single bathrooms with a door and a lock on them. That's just part of the design. And then we have two bathrooms that for each gender that are multi, a little bit larger, maybe what we call a 2 or 3 holer, not to be kind of coarse, but so for
That's
for
retro.
the most part, yeah, right. For the most part, it's not an issue here. If there's a student or an adult, all the adult bathrooms are single. But if there were a student that needed that accommodation, it would not be any kind of barrier at Dover based on our construction, our ability to provide that option for them.
How about the policy as a whole? How about the idea of the policy? Well, let's not even necessarily look at the details
Yeah.
of it.
I mean, quite frankly, it makes me kind of sad that there has to be a policy about this, about respecting people's identity and their daily use of facilities. It seems it's really kind of sad, but I understand that they need to be protected. They need to be acknowledged. It is not ever going to be a policy that I would rely on, because there is nothing in here that isn't just part of normal procedure. I mean, this is just how we treat each other. This is humans treating each other like humans. And I don't feel like we need a policy for that, but I do understand that there is a need for them in some cases. So I would support this policy completely, and would continue to do whatever we needed to do for our students and staff to make sure that they are acknowledged and that their needs are met, because this is just about meeting basic human needs. And so that's kind of my 2 cents. I will definitely get on board with it, whatever the board decides. And it's not a barrier mechanically here at Dover, nor is it one from an emotional perspective. So I'm really okay either way.
Matt, I agree with everything you just said. I'll just, my 2 thoughts on this are, one, having the policy lets people outside of the community, people coming into the community, people outside the school say, yes, we care, or we're aware. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I'll leave it at that. Kate, you have any thoughts?
I think, having a policy that sets our intention that we believe in human rights and, an individual's right to be recognized in the way that they view themselves is important. Then again, like from the facility standpoint, I also don't want to put the district in a bind with being able to make all of it work for the facilities too. So yes, I fully agree that, we should treat people how they're asking to be treated and identify them however they identify themselves. And I know that there's other schools within our SU overall that are very progressive when it comes to labeling pronouns and making sure that people are using the proper pronouns for each human. So, and maybe there's some ways that we could work towards that as well.
And what we're really talking about here is like both of you have said, treating humans as humans, and equity. And I guess I'm a little torn between the idea of, I feel as a district, we should make a statement that that's how we feel. And that because we should just treat a human as a human, that we shouldn't be signaling out a particular group like this. I don't know if it's 6 of one, half dozen of another, but so straw poll. Assuming we can figure out the straw poll. Thank you. We can figure out the bathroom, the facilities aspect of this. Should we continue looking at it?
I would say yes, because I feel like Kate's point about that this makes a statement to outsiders about what we value and how we treat people. I think that that's a valuable statement. And I want to make it. I think it's, so I'm much more leaning now after hearing Kate toward just going through with this, adopting this policy for that reason. And then in terms of the restrooms and the facilities, I think I've got to reread, but my sense was it's not necessarily saying you have to build new restrooms, but you have to honor the choices that people make. And if somebody makes a choice to use a particular restroom, you can't not allow them to do that, or locker room. Is that how you guys read it?
I'm pulling it up again.
It's toward the bottom, page 3, under use of gender segregated facilities.
Yeah, it's a whole section.
Yeah, so I
They
don't
should
think
not
it
be
says,
required to use the locker room that conflicts with the student's gender identity.
right,
And if they express a need for privacy, that it will be provided with reasonable alternative arrangements.
right. So we could allocate a single teacher bathroom to a student who wasn't feeling comfortable using
Yeah, and
it.
at Wards, oh, sorry. But yeah, at Wardsboro, they don't have that, but maybe they could have something else where another time slot or something. I don't know. I don't know what makes sense. I think Tammy, you should really be able to weigh in on that part.
Yeah. There's a single bathroom in Wardsboro across from the Title I room.
I think that one is for teacher use only. And yeah. So I'm not sure.
And that's the one where you would say, okay, we're not going to have that teacher use only anymore. We're going to allow so-and-so to use that if they feel like they don't need, don't want to use the group bathroom.
All right, so Tammy liked the idea about finding out what other schools in the state are doing that have the facilities issue. So I will talk to Bill and the VSBA about that, and we'll bring it up again at our next meeting and have another discussion about it. And we'll move from there. Maybe we'll have to make some adjustments to the wording.
But Mark, I think that was a really important one to bring up. So thanks for picking it out of the list. Like, nice work.
Thank you. To some extent, I was trying to fill the gap from my not finishing the board email policy. I'll be all honest, trying to find something else to fill the time with, but it did seem like something that we should at least talk about. And with your guys' approval, I think I will make time on next month's agenda to just go through that list so we can all pick out ones that we think we should be talking about.
Good.
And yeah, I restarted the email board policy because I realized that I didn't have the ability to get all the do all the legal referencing that was needed. So I talked to Bill, and I've got an outline, which Kate, I may send you before sending it to Bill, to give to the lawyer, and the lawyer's going to kind of fill in legal references for us.
Oh, perfect. It's a good idea.
On that, because I was getting lost in law. I was just like, this isn't me. And other than that, we do start reviewing the instructional category, the Ds, starting next month.
Good.
All good. Anything else? Okay, then we will meet again, same bat channel on March 12th at 9 a.m. And I will.
Good. Thanks for doing all the legwork on this, guys.
Well,
Mark's done a boatload.
We'll keep trudging along. Yeah, well, you've got kids at home, Kate. You got a lot more to do in life than I do.
Yes, my time is definitely very spoken for.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for taking the time now. We're doing good work, and policies really are important. So I really appreciate all the time that you guys are putting in and giving us. So thank you.
Stay warm this
And
weekend.
we'll see you guys on Monday, 22nd.
22nd.
The 22nd. Do we need a motion to adjourn?
We do, yes.
So I make a motion to adjourn at 9:58 a.m.
And technically, all we need is a motion. We don't actually need to vote on it. So we are adjourned.
Thanks, guys. Have a nice weekend.
You
Thank
too.
you, you too.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.